Hello, everybody. I'm just gonna add our guest.
Hey, what's up, man?
How's it going? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Cool. Awesome.
You hear me?
Yeah.
See me good?
Yeah, I see you great. I
Cool.
hear you good. I think we're ready to go.
Cool.
Awesome. So we'll give some people some time to join this live conversation.
Sweet.
Um, I just wanted to get a little bit of info from your meditation. So Alex is going to be we're going to have a little conversation, and then Alex is going to guide us through a meditation, and then afterwards we're going to do a Q&A with him. So if any of you have questions at any point, there's a little question mark box by your comment, by where you leave a comment, so you can just write a question, and after Alex's meditation, I'll pop back in and we'll ask him some questions. So yeah, you can do that anytime during the conversation. All right. Let me see. Okay. Well, I think we can. Go and get started.
Cool.
All right. So Alex Dickinson. This session, I think it was your idea to call this session "Moving with Stillness."
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So Alex Dickinson is a writer, a copywriter, and also not copywriter, a runner, and also a yogi. And he's participated with Aire Libre in different points. He led a session in New York City, and he also participated in Oaxaca, correct?
Yeah.
In our Oaxaca retreat.
Yeah.
So, and what Alex did in New York was basically lead, the meditation side of it, and the kind of intact with yourself side. And that's kind of what his topic is about in our conversation today, moving with stillness. Maybe I just wanted to get you to talk a little bit about yourself, how you got started with running and yoga and meditation, how it all came to interest you.
Yeah. It goes back sort of a long ways, and I can just sort of start at the beginning. But first and foremost, just thanks for having me. I mean, it's been great to be part of the Aire Libre family. We had a pretty unreal trip down in Oaxaca, and then a cool experience up in the city. So,
Cool.
yeah, I mean, I've been running for like 12 years now, and started running essentially like at the same time that I started practicing yoga. And
Yeah.
to me, they were really like motivated from sort of the same place. And I think that like they have a lot of commonalities, but people see them as quite different. I know I did for a long time. Like I was looking to get the same things out of them, sort of, just getting in touch with the body and feeling healthier and paying attention to what was going on right in front of you. I was a pretty like stressed out kid growing up, and so running and yoga were like perfect for sort of helping me deal with the things that were going on around me in a more like intentional way. Because I think running and yoga are both sort of just responding to stimulus that may or may not feel it's super enjoyable or positive, and sometimes they do, and you're practicing that sort of like equanimity. So I started doing them both when I was like 16, and my family had just taken a trip to China, and we spent 2 months sort of traveling around, and I started reading a lot of like Eastern philosophy and getting into Buddhism, and just seeing like how much happier people were when they lived a little bit of a slower, more intentional, mindful life, maybe out, in the countryside, and noticing the difference between that and like what I had grown up with.
Where were you living at the time?
So my family is from Washington State, about 35 minutes outside of Seattle. And so when I got back there from China, I just started like hiking. Every morning I would go up the same mountain in my hometown, and then I would meditate at the top, and then I would do a yoga class every night. And it was just like at the beginning I was all in, you know, and I think there's something so special about that period when you get introduced to something and you're just so into it, you know? And
Awesome.
yeah, I like lost my phone and I was like, this is great. Now I just have more time to run and meditate, all this hippie stuff in my hometown, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did living, was it kind of an urban area, or was it more like a more
It
suburban
was,
area?
yeah, no, that's a good question. It was like kind of right on the border. So, um,
Okay.
like, I think now it's like a suburb of Seattle for sure. Like a lot of
Yeah.
tech people in Seattle live out there and then driving in the city every day. But at the time, it was like a pretty small town, and it's got amazing trails. And
Yeah.
like, I still can go back and run up that trail and have an amazing time. You know,
Awesome.
it was a beautiful place to grow up for sure.
Oh yeah, I can imagine in Washington.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask. You said you kind of discovered running and yoga at the same time, and when you were 16, which is,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know if I would. I don't know what I was doing at 16, but it wasn't yoga. um, I mean, were you aware of how it affected you mentally? You know, how running and yoga affected you mentally, or were you conscious of that part at that age, or was it you just discovering this kind of space that it gave you, and then you slowly came to understand it as you did it more?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I mean, I'm super lucky to have found it that young. I think it's pretty rare for young guys to get into yoga in particular, like when they're that young. And um, for me, um, I think I did go into it with that mindset a little bit of like this is going to be a healing practice, particularly the yoga. I was going to a great studio where it was like quite traditional, and um, you know, I started feeling those benefits within like 2 weeks. Like I was more relaxed, I was more um, confident. I was like really, I think, you know, getting into that spiritual side of it. So to me, it was like I started in yoga like grappling with the self right away, you know, and I was just so lucky to have a great teacher. And then from there, like it just got better and better. Like I started
Yeah.
running more. I ran with the team a little bit when I was in college and mostly just did training and stuff with them. But then I was also practicing in Portland, Oregon, where I went to school at a great studio. I just had great teachers the whole time. So, you know, even though like I love the physical side of the practice, like it was always, um, you know, apparent to me that we were doing some deeper work.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. How did your yoga practice complement your running side? You know, did it influence um, I don't know, maybe what you thought about while you ran, or maybe it just helped your body? Like how did you see it influence your running
Yeah,
style?
yeah. On a superficial level, you know, there's definitely like injury prevention and strengthening and all that good stuff. You know, mobility and all that is great. But I think what I've learned more and more over time is like how connected the two practices really are. And like, you know, I think now it's like yoga. A lot of people think of it as something that's like just a workout, or it's like meant to be very easy and soothing and calming. And
Mm,
I think there's sort of a miss there in that like yoga can be very difficult, but in a good way that challenges you mentally, and then you pay attention to those responses. It's just like in meditation when you start getting distracted, instead of like letting that stimulus sort of shake you up and get you angry and you're like frustrated with yourself. In yoga, if you have that double narrative of saying like, oh, why does this feel so hard? Um, then you aren't reacting to the stimulus in a positive way. And I think that's the same thing that you're
mm,
practicing running. Like if it feels hard, then you can totally change your perspective of that experience and get something completely different from it. So like now when a workout is feeling like harder than I think it should be, I'm able to like focus on just the feeling of the experience rather than how I feel about the feeling of the experience, right? And attaching like a double narrative to it. And that's all the same thing that yoga is. It's sort of like you learn how to put up with difficult stimulus or stimuli through the practice.
That sounds like it'd be really useful for. I mean, I don't know if you compete or in very long distance running. It sounds like what you're saying is basically you can use your attitude and it really affects your performance. Maybe if you're running and you're suffering, you're saying that just like in yoga, if you're making these movements and you're focusing on the negative aspect of it instead of flowing with it, it can help you go farther or keep your endurance up.
Yeah. And I think that like, again, in meditation, it's like you have a voice in your head and you can sort of let it run wild and get out of control, or you can just like really pay attention to that as another stimulus or another feeling, or another sensation, and just kind of watch it go by, right? Without like attaching yourself to it too much. And it's the same thing in running. Like if you just let that narrative sort of play out and really focus on what you're experiencing in the moment, like 9 times out of 10, you're going to realize that it's not as bad as you think it is at first. And if you freak out about it, it's going to get worse,
Yeah. Awesome. I just want to let everybody know again, if you guys have any questions, you can click on the little question box, and Alex is going to do a little meditation session right now, and then we'll do a Q&A after his meditation. But I wanted to ask again about this meditation practice and your running, because I mean I'm sure you know about flow, that runner's high kind of thing. Do you think this runner's high has anything to do with that meditative state or mindfulness while you're running?
Totally. Yeah, I think that like everyone experiences it at some point, and when you are first getting into it, you maybe like catch a glimpse of that flow state, right? And that's usually like the first time when you're hooked, and you're just it's the first, maybe one of those first times where you've ever been so present that like you're just watching everything happen around you, and the breath is just happening, and you're letting that happen. You're not forcing it. You're not forcing the movement. The legs are running themselves, but everything at the same time is like heightened and so vivid and clear, and it's like life magnified, right? It's just something really special, and I think that like I was lucky enough to like hit that a couple times when I was running really early on, and I was like, what happened? That was amazing. I want more. I want to do more of that. And then it happened a couple times in yoga, and I was like, that's the best thing ever. I want to be fully in like the present experience, and the easiest ways to access that for me are through movement, like running and yoga. And as like my practice has changed over time, and like sometimes I can't practice yoga every day, especially if I'm like running 90 miles a week, sometimes that has to come through meditation. And so you learn how to tap into that a little bit more. But I think that like it's a similar state for sure.
So I'm curious now, for somebody that's consciously practiced running with yoga, with meditation, I think most of us, I'm not a super good runner. I've heard of the runner's high, but I've never been able to achieve the runner's high. But I think that's what it has to do with a lot of what you're saying. Your mind's just going crazy. But I'm wondering if you've kind of developed some practices, or I don't know, in meditation and in yoga, there's so many methods that kind of center your mind. Maybe using like a key word that you just repeat that really has no meaning, or doing the om.
Yeah.
Have you developed a certain practice to kind of trigger that runner's high?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's I think that there's more and more work being done in sort of this like way of thinking, and maybe it's not as much work has been done in like yoga and meditation, right? So I think that like people are really starting to get excited about mindful running, but I did a lot of reading and stuff like that a couple of years ago, and I was like, there's really good stuff out there, but I'm missing something that's like quite easy to grasp and actionable. And so I started just like experimenting on myself, like, okay, I know what that amazing like state feels like. How do I make sure that I can get there more often? And so I just like started putting together like my pre-run routine and like dialed certain things up. Some things worked, some things didn't. And so I've been, working on like a more actionable, like 10-step, almost like program that you can do in like 10 or 15 minutes pre-run and then during your run, to help you sort of get into that state. And, it starts really simple with just like the sitting practice of sitting and breathing and getting into that mindfulness meditation, whether it's 30 seconds or however much time you have. And then there's some like proprioception drills to sort of establish a little bit more connection between your mind and your body before you start running. And those are things that you just pick up from yoga. It's like cross body connection stuff and like funny hand drills that actually like go a long way and are really tricky, but they just like help you develop that connection between the two sides of your brain so that you're more coordinated and you're actually feeling what's going on in your body a little bit better as you're running. And then as you're running, there's a few things you can do as well, like sort of syncing up your breath with your steps. So it's 3 and 3, or, you can close your eyes for a couple of seconds as you're running, just to feel all the other senses of your movement and that proprioception, without relying on your vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's about, it has a lot to do with sensing what's going on with your body.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking about it.
Yeah, it's little tricks to like put yourself right in that present moment of moving and that sensation.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I've got these written out, working on editing, and then hopefully going to get it into a little booklet with some nice illustrations and see if we can publish it.
Awesome. Sounds cool. It's funny that that our bodies and our minds are so used to their habits used to their habits that you have to trick them into getting into this kind of calm state.
Yeah, it's funny. They tend to go to sleep on each other a little bit.
Yeah. So before we move into your meditation, I just wanted to kind of go over what it can be short, but just what does this mean to you? What does moving with stillness mean to you?
Yeah. So yoga and meditation, I think, really are like practices of stillness. Yoga, the first piece of writing about yoga is just cessation of, the fluctuations of the mind. So we have these stimulus and stimuli that come up, and they sort of, challenge the equilibrium. So the idea is to get to a place that's calm and centered and slower until eventually like it's all still. And then you're just, whatever you want to call it, enlightenment, perception, that's like the next level. But I think just with running, you can get to a place where you have sort of more an open awareness and you have some stillness to where you're not reacting so aggressively maybe to sort of what's happening to you and the stimuli and all of those feelings. So that's the idea.
Awesome. Well, I think with that, I'll pass it over to you, and then you can just guide us through a little meditation. After the meditation's done, we're going to do some Q&A with Alex, so you can just drop your questions where the little question mark is. And so I'm going to turn my camera off and I'll hand it over to you.
All right, we'll see you in a few. So we're just going to do a little guided mindfulness meditation. So if you're going to hang out for this, just go ahead and find a comfortable seat, or you can stand for this, or if you're really feeling like it, I know it's the end of the day, you can go ahead and lay down, but maybe since it is the end of the day, sitting might be a little better so you don't fall asleep. And start by just actually keeping the eyes open, and just sort of softening the gaze. So instead of focusing on, say, my eyes or anything in particular, go ahead and just perceive everything in front of you all at once, sort of like a tapestry without following any one part of it. And then go ahead and just softly and gently relax the eyes closed. So it's going to be like curtains are falling. And then just take a minute to notice the breath. And you're not going to try and change it quite yet. Just see where it's at. And then you'll probably notice that just by noticing, it's changed a little bit, and that's fine. But try to let go of any control over the breath. And then start to just notice any sounds. So it can be, the sound of my voice, but also the sounds around you in the room, outside of the room, maybe birds chirping. And try to notice it all as sort of one layer of sound just coming at you without focusing on any one thing. And then start to notice the sensations on the skin. So the weight of the clothing, the air just moving gently over the skin. You'll notice the sensation of the weight of the body sitting, or the weight in the feet. And then come a little bit closer in, and you'll notice the sensation sort of in the body. You might notice any discomfort, tension. You might notice the heartbeat. You might really get acquainted with the breath. And thoughts are going to come up, and the idea here is not to suppress them, but just notice them. So as they're bubbling up, see if you can notice a thought, maybe just one, as it's happening. And then as it's bubbling up, maybe even you notice a thought before it's happening. It's that inner monologue saying, that mind movie, what's playing on that screen. And then you can think about each thought as sort of a rung on a ladder that you're climbing downward into like an ocean of consciousness. So you're going further and further down into the subconscious. And then you'll realize that thoughts are just stimuli like all the feelings and sensations and sounds, and it's all stimuli, and how you react to it is the practice. So when a thought comes up, see if you can notice it without being so reactionary. And if you get distracted, go ahead and just come on back and notice the thought as it's happening. You'll realize that noticing a thought before it's happening is simply noticing it before it gets to a certain level of volume, sort of a closeness to the surface that you wouldn't normally notice it at. It bubbles up and it's there before you see it. Just watch a little bit more closely. And if you get lost in thought, just see if you can do that without getting any frustration. And then we'll just start to come back. So you'll come back to those sensations of the body. So any tension or just the weight of the body. You'll notice the sensations on the skin. So air moving over the skin. You'll notice the weight of the clothing. And then a little bit further out, notice the sounds around you. In the room, outside the room. Just one wall of sound. Try not to latch on to any one thing and see where the mind goes. And now just for, say, 30 seconds or so, with the eyes closed, just relax. So you're not going to direct your focus in any way. Just let it go where it goes. You're not necessarily trying to notice where it goes. Just rest and let it be. And then when you're ready, go ahead and just, like you're drawing up curtains, gently just open the eyes and keep a soft focus at first. And then see if you can take 10 seconds just to try to keep that relaxed space of mind, that openness and non-reactivity as a little buffer or a bridge between that meditation and the rest of your day. All right. I haven't seen any questions come through, but
well, I'll just throw one question your way. So, for somebody that practices meditation, yoga, before anything, thank you for the meditation.
Of course.
That was honestly awesome. It was very fast, but it was very easy to get into the state, at least for me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's good or anything, but
You're a pro.
Yes, I just had the question of, in for example, in Zen, in a lot of Zen practice, the idea behind a lot of that stuff is, if you're thinking about doing it, you're not doing it.
Yeah.
You're doing it and you don't have to think about it. So, so I'm wondering, do you ever struggle with that idea when you're trying to get into the runner's high, like consciously thinking about it, or into any mindful state when you're meditating or doing yoga?
Yeah, I think that like that's a really great thought, and like if you do pressure it too much, of course it's not going to happen, right? But I think that like it's important to realize that um, that like the ability to not have a thought for a second is like very advanced. You know what I mean? Like you're pretty enlightened at that point. So I think like it you can cut yourself a little bit of slack sometimes, and for me sometimes it's just about like slowing those thoughts down a little bit so that whether it's half a second without a thought, then I'm happy with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Cool. You got a stopwatch for your thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. That's more in the meditation, less in the running.
Awesome.
You know, you can. I think it's more with running. It's about like building the conditions so that you can have a little bit more of a mindful running experience without forcing it. So you set yourself up to get into that space, and then you just let it happen, right?
Okay. And then you set yourself up doing the pre-run meditation that you were talking about creating a book for.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you know when you're like, say you're out for a run tomorrow morning, right? And like it's early, it's dark, like you're gonna want some company to get out the door, so you'll probably throw the headphones in and turn on some music, and or you'll put on a podcast, and like I I love doing that, you know, like I love a good podcast on a run. I learn, I think, like all those good things, but then sometimes if you're doing that all the time, you're probably gonna miss out on like a fully present running experience that can be like transcendental, you know, like it can be um, like an experience of the divine. It can be the best thing ever. Um, and so like one of my tricks is like I'll go out, do the first mile or two with the headphones in, and then I'll keep them in. I'll just pause whatever I'm playing and do the rest of the run without that podcast. Because once you get started, it's like a lot easier to go without the company, right? Or like, you know, on a really hard workout, it's like it's nice to have some trap music in, right? But then like sometimes I'll just play like Mozart on a run, like on an easy run or a long run. Like I know it's weird and like people don't do it, but like go try it. Like go try putting on some classical music on your favorite trail and just like see what happens, you know?
Huh. Awesome. Sounds like it'd be like a very Wes Anderson experience.
This whole thing, man.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Alex, I just want to say thank you very much, man. The conversation was awesome and your meditation was really awesome. And thank you again for doing the live session with us.
Of course, anytime.
It's been great. Thank you.
Abrazos. See ya.
Peace out. Cool. I don't know how to end this. Oh, okay, figured it out. See you guys around.